there is absolutely, you're right. There's no shortage of things to talk about. You can't turn left or right without seeing some type of deception. Um, but when I stopped and really listened to that Baxter podcast, and really took what he said to heart about four major prophecies coming together, it's just kind of astounding because we try very hard to shed some light, again in a very dark world, and we are getting so close to a time where so much is going to happen so very quickly that I don't know. It's sometimes it's a little overwhelming, trying to watch and see what's going on and seeing all this prophecy start to materialize right in front of us. It makes me feel sometimes like the little things are almost insignificant, yet I know they're not. In God's hands, they can be very powerful.
Right. And just think of how well we are, I mean, it's going to be awful, but think of how well prepared we are compared to those, even Christians that don't know, half of this stuff, or let alone people that aren't Christians. I mean, so we're sitting here with our armor on and our, swords in hand. And so it's our duty to go out there and start spreading some armor around, for this onslaught, because we're about as prepared as you can get.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the biggest burdens that I've had on me for some time now is the burden of the church, so to speak. I made a comment in a podcast a while ago and I said that this is probably the most dangerous time in human history to belong to a church organization. And, I really feel that, and I believe that, because I know a lot of what you might call churched people. I have quite a few people that I'm involved with that way. And yet many times when I talk about the things that we all discuss on this particular network, they look at me like I have two heads. And, trying to discuss this type of thing, trying to make people aware that there's so much more going on in prophecy than they realize. I'm not a big proponent of the social gospel. Did a podcast on that a little bit, and that's where my burden has been, trying to wake up the saved, because I see a lot of people who have a faith in Christ and have no idea where we stand in prophetic timetable.
Yeah, it's really I don't know. It's gotten very pathetic. It's almost like you have these so-called church leaders covering up, completely covering up what they should be expounding upon, what they should be using to save souls and prepare their flocks. They're just burying it like it's not even happening. And, I mean, it's a complete travesty. I mean, it's beyond comprehension to me. I grew up, when I was a kid, I was in what I thought was a really great church. And my best friend's father was the pastor, and, they talked about the end of the world. They talked about one world government and mark of the beast and all this stuff. We watched movies about it and whatnot. And I guess that's kind of what kicked off in me, this, I don't know, like an interest in it. And then it was my friend moved, and we ended up in different churches here and there and there. I never heard anything else about it. It was like, it's not even there. It's not even something worth mentioning. And now I talk to my mother, and she's in a church in Pennsylvania where they're having they're canceling Sunday services to meet with the Catholics, and she goes to the pastor's house for a picnic, and they've got statues of Catholic saints in their yard, and it's like a Baptist church. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you want to talk about a conspiracy? We don't even need to look at the government. It's in the church. I mean, the church. I don't know how to wake people up. I get more people writing me basically hate mail that are supposedly Christians and telling me about what church they go to and how awesome their church is, and, well, why am I not hearing about this church? And the North American Union's not even real, let alone anything else. So, where do you go with that?
No question. And again, when you look at this social mentality that's being preached today, it's difficult to enter into a church, an organization, or group of people that have that mindset and begin to talk about, end of time prophecies as they relate to world events, it's almost like they're glazed over. They're not aware of. They're very comfortable in the environment that they exist in, which is an environment, like you said, that does not make them aware of this. You can go and sit in some of these churches and listen to the sermons and say, well, really reading my Bible the way I read it, knowing the things that I know, what was just preached has absolutely no bearing on my life whatsoever. It has nothing to do with where I am. It has nothing to do with the burden I feel that I need to share with you. And when you're in those groups, you're made to feel like I'm made to feel like some type of an outcast, or a guy who maybe has a chip on his shoulder or something along that line, and it truly is not that way. But I do see the church as glazed over. Funny what you mentioned. I read an article not too long ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, about an evangelical church. I'm not sure where it was. I want to say Pennsylvania, but I might be wrong. That had 3 locations, and they were actually now doing Eucharistic services. I think it was every other Sunday. They were actually doing Eucharistic services in these evangelical churches, which I thought was really kind of odd. So you talk about the statutes and this and that, and here I'm listening to or reading an article about evangelical churches holding Eucharistic services, and I'm like, my God, where is this headed?
Yeah, well, you know where it's headed.
Yeah, I do. You don't expect it. You want to look to some of these teachers and ministers and preachers and say, hey, guy, wake up. What are you doing? I want to think that they know, some of what the Lord has been gracious enough to show me, but I get the feeling they really don't. And I really see that church building has become, the order of the day. Membership building is really where it's at. It's kind of give the people what it is they want, and if you do, they will come. Build it, and they'll come. And they are, and they're coming in droves. And, great people, wonderful people, kind-hearted people, giving people, but completely in the dark as to where we stand, where our country's going in prophecy, where our country's going from a political point of view. It's a scary thing for me.
Yeah, well, they've got their purpose. They're purpose-driven, and their purpose is to be nice. Their purpose, to me, I guess, outwardly, is a lot like the Freemasons or something. It's just go out and be a good person and move rocks or take out garbage for your neighbor, or do all these nice things so that you can be a part of what is this grand scheme of building God's kingdom here on earth, where everything's going to be hunky-dory. And it's not none of this, like, no humility, no comprehension that we are, in essence, powerless to do anything but to help spread the word. I mean, God's going to work on God's timetable. We're not building anything. It's just this whole bait and switch thing where you think you're going to church for God, and in reality you're going there to feel good and to basically make friends and move up the social ladder.
Oh yeah, absolutely, agreed, 100%. And it works for some people too. And I'm not saying it's all bad in and of itself, but it tends to take your eye off of the gospel. It really does. At least if it doesn't, it focuses you in on, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and you kind of get stuck in the 4 gospels, and you don't press on. You never get to Daniel. You never get to Revelation. Old Testament is something that used to be studied. Old Testament prophecy and so forth really is not looked at. And so it really puts blinders on a lot of people. It really doesn't give people a broad perspective of what God's plan truly is. And it's funny you mentioned, but I've had people tell me that are in churches saying, I don't really think all this bad stuff is going to happen. I think that if we all come together and we all get along and we all respect one another, that God will let a lot of that pass, and that none of that will ever really have to happen. And to me, that's a dangerous mindset. It really is.
You there, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I haven't had as much experience there, but I have, as I've said a little bit in my podcast, I've been going to a church when I can. I usually don't get to go there as much, but there's some things I really don't like about it. But I was really impressed at the fact that it seems like a pretty bigger church, but they really believe in the power of Jesus, and they don't shy away from it at all, and they are open to, just really what the gospel says, what everything says. It's the truth, and I think his presence is so powerful there, and that can't be, it just can't. There's no other substitute for walking into a room and in that praise atmosphere, feeling that presence, and it just bringing you to tears. You just can't get that no matter what you do on your computer, And so I think that obviously it's necessary. And then one of the things I don't like, and I know you guys don't do this, I'm really speaking more of like Zeph Daniel or something like that, who is just constantly, the churches, just railing against the churches and everything, but, in the context of they're all gone bad and whatever. But I think in a way that's kind of looking at it like God isn't powerful enough to put together a church that is of the truth and run in the way he wants it to run. I think that there are churches out there, and I'm sure that once this thing gets rolling, where the 501c3s are really called out on what they're teaching and stuff, there is going to be real churches that are underground again, and we're going to have to start drawing fish on doorways here pretty soon, just to make sure we're not going to get taken to jail. And so who knows? But I do think there's just no substitute for that kind of, I would say, fellowship, but it's probably that too. But you know what I'm saying. I know you guys feel the same way.
No,
but.
Absolutely. I even thought. I mean, I when I get talking to people in emails and stuff, and they talk to me about their churches and whatnot, I'll ask them, and there definitely are, more than a handful of people that at least listen to my show that are in what appear to be good, solid churches. And granted, they're 1,700 miles away from me, but they are out there. And I thought about coming up with some kind of what do you call it? Like a list, a checklist type thing, and asking people, if your church fits into this, let me know, and I'll put together like a directory of churches that seem to fit into it and whatnot. And then I was like, do I really want to put this list out there for people that someday are going to like turn and like look for these people to hunt them down? It's like constant, like, do I want to do this? Do I, but I mean, I thought about doing that because there definitely are good churches out there. I mean, I don't know about in New Jersey right now, but I mean, they definitely are out there.
Yeah, and Chris, one, it's a blessing. It truly is. And I don't mean to come off, as anti-church. I'm definitely not. But I do think that we're going to get to the point where, home churching and the small at-home churches are really going to be the way to go because, I have not found one yet. I'm still searching. And funny thing is, I am searching. It is something I want to participate in and would love to participate in. At the same time, I kind of feel like God has me, where he has me for a purpose. So I'll keep open mouth, but to find one is a blessing. It's great.
And the searching is, I'm sure he's using that as well. For every church that you that doesn't fit, you pick up something that maybe that's what you needed to pick up.
Yeah.
So who knows where that's going? I'm sure that I do think that finding the church won't always be about trying to figure it out online. Hey, do they work it out? I think I'm sure, and everybody that is really diligently searching for one for the right reasons, it's just a matter of prayer. I mean, God is no doubt faithful to those prayers. I mean, that's one that you can be pretty reasonably certain is within the will of God.
Right.
Just whatnot. Psalm 111.
I often think that for myself, I'm still in exactly what you said. I'm still in the learning process. Granted, we all are, but when it comes to finding the right church to frequent and be a part of, I'm still in the learning process, and I think that there's a lot more I need to see. Maybe that's the reason I haven't found one yet.
And I'd also like to point out that I'm a total hypocrite in this regard too, because I rarely go to the church that I'm talking about. I barely get there, so I don't actually practice what I preach in that often. anyway, as much as I can. But lately, it certainly hasn't been very much. I'm out of town a lot, but anyway.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, I'll be in your neck of the woods this Friday?
Where are you going to be?
New York. I don't remember where. It's